Good day, everyone, and welcome to Beatings in Space, a SD Gundam Generation Genesis Let's Play. My name is Igloo, and with me is...
Mechalomaniac. You'll recognize me as the jackass who goes along with him on Star Trek.
I'm Kaitera. I'm friends with these guys. I haven't done this before.
I'm Solid Snake, and I'm looking for Metal Gear.
I kind of hate to break it to you, Konami is not doing good things with Metal Gear right now, Solid Snake.
Damn.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate. So, I asked folks, how they would like to see me go through all the stuff in Genesis, and I would say the most interesting suggestion that I got from some folks was to go through it all in chronological order. And for that reason, we're going to start with MS Igloo, which that was an interesting show. It was pretty short. Was it 3 episodes per season? I think it was.
Yeah.
They were decently sized. I think they were a little bit longer than normal episodes. But yeah, it was only 3 per, and it was basically a series. Well, the first 2 seasons of it were following this Xeon experimental test unit as they showed off the wacky hidden weapons of the war.
Yeah, it's like the Gundam version of Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe.
Yeah.
If you ever played that game.
Basically, yeah. And although one thing about MS Igloo as well is that a lot of bad things happen to everyone, which is...
See, that's the cool thing about it is, unlike that stuff, all that experimental World War II stuff, you actually get to see these put into action and see them fail.
Yeah. Or in some cases work, but not work as as desired.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the episode that this mission is based off of is kind of exactly like that for reasons that will soon be seen. So this episode is... I'm trying to remember which month they said it was. So it's actually one thing that's really nice in G-Gen that sort of helps doing it in chronological order is that when you choose a stage, it actually tells you what point in the timeline, which month and which year it starts in. And then I don't know if it does this for every mission, but then once this mission starts, it actually tells you the day.
Yeah, this one has a lot of inner monologue from one of the characters.
Yeah. So Oliver May here is basically the main character of Igloo, and he is essentially the leader of the test unit. But the chain of command is very weird for reasons that we will also soon see. But yeah, this episode is about basically they built a prototype mega cannon because at this point in the war, the majority of conflicts were between ships themselves and maybe some fighter craft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this takes place 6 months before the original anime actually started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is January, and then...
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was January as well.
Oh, right, I'm thinking of the second
here it is. January 4th. So, at this point in the war, it was still primarily, basically naval combat. There were some, fighter craft that were engaged at times. But for the most part, it was capital ships shooting at capital ships. So the idea of a independent mega cannon that could fire from outside of the range of other ships was a very useful technology to have. So now they're just doing like the actual field testing of the cannon instead of doing it sort of like behind the lines. Like, the point of this test unit was to take these technologies out into actual battle or battle-ish conditions and see how they operated. And I would say that this is this cannon is probably the most normal weapon that they show off in MSC.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not actually true. There is one other that is actually pretty normal, and that's actually going to be quite a ways away because if I remember right, that one was technically from Apocalypse 0079, which is the second season.
Yeah, this is actually... I want to say this is literally taking place like a day or two after the war officially began.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we also get to see another major event from these characters' perspective as part of it.
It's kind of nice and convenient how the 1 year war starts in January and ends at the very end of the year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's very, very convenient.
And I guess, should we explain what the 1 year war is for people who are not super into Gundam?
Yeah. So basically, so folks that aren't necessarily like familiar with the history of Gundam, the first series, Mobile Suit Gundam itself, is based around this war between the Earth Federation, basically the government of Earth, and the Republic of Zeon, which is ostensibly calling itself the government of the space colonies. And it doesn't necessarily represent all of them because there are a few that are still aligned with Earth. But broadly speaking, it's a conflict between Earth and space because the space colonies, which are technically colonies of the Earth Federation, want to have their own independence. And Earth does not want that. So the Republic of Zeon is like, screw this, and wages a civil war for their independence.
Mm-hmm.
And then things happen with regards to like the politics of Zeon itself, which makes it kind of more shades of gray than that itself sounds like. But
yeah.
I mean, to put it simply, at this point in the conflict, the government of the Republic of Zeon is basically Nazi Germany. Even though their aims are a little bit like, they want independence from the Earth sphere, which is kind of a good thing, but their government is super shitty, which is a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, to be totally fair, they're not Nazi Germany to the point where they are actively committing genocide against an ethnic group.
Yeah.
They are trying to commit genocide against everyone who lives on the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, in Gundam itself, like, actually throughout a lot of the set of the Gundam series, which is covered by the Universal Century banner, a lot of it is more that they take the Nazi themes and like the look and styling of them more than anything else. Like, they have...
Yeah.
Their leaders are shitty, but not shitty in that way. Except for, like, one thing, and even then, that's not, like, shitty in Nazi ways. It's shitty in, like, war crime ways.
Yeah.
They love war crimes. That's their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as we go through, we'll go through, like, 70% of this game is the 1 year war because it's kind of...
Pretty much.
The World War II of this setting.
There are 18 different series that you can choose from in Genesis, and 11 of them are during the 1 year war.
Yeah.
So,
but we will see shitty ends on both sides of this.
Yeah.
And good people on both sides.
Yeah. In Mobile Suit Gundam itself, they are... It is a lot more straightforward as to who is, like, the quote-unquote good guys and bad guys, because one of the things about the original show is that it was kind of the basis for a new style of basically mecha or like in a way Japanese superhero quote unquote shows, and it was not so much based on just like big good guys doing good things. So there was a lot more nuance in the way that like characters interacted with each other and with the enemies and all that. So actually, while I was talking about that, I forgot what my chain of thought was.
Basically, it started a more shades of gray viewpoint in the giant robot genre, when before everything had been like the big hero robot versus invading aliens or something.
Yeah,
where the aliens are just bad guys.
But since it's the first one, the original actually had a lot of those super robot trappings, like Monsters of the Week and the one invincible main robot.
Yeah, it wasn't able to get away from all of that entirely, simply because it was the first one. But you could see, like, if you watched other mecha shows of roughly the same time and compared them to Gundam, like you could see that there was a fairly obvious difference.
I will say one thing. These guys have really good aim for people who have no eyes.
I know, right?
In these games, unlike in Super Robot Wars, you can pretty much assume any time an attack's coming at your way, you're probably going to take damage.
Yeah, which is actually like kind of interesting for a game based around this series, because one of the things in Gundam, which is also kind of a difference between like the quote unquote super robots and real robots of that specific time, is that like Gundam and a lot of units in Gundam tend to dodge attacks instead of taking them. And like units that took attacks tended to die. So it's interesting. Like, so I find it very interesting in G-Gen that it tends to be a game where units don't dodge very much, and in fact they tend to soak a lot of damage.
Yeah, so what you want to do is, the game has a support attack system where you have teams of mobile suits and you put them out, and whenever somebody on the team in the leader's area, you'll see once he actually gets some units out, when two that are in that same area who haven't acted yet, when one of them attacks, the other can also support him. So you'll usually be trying to kill everything with your first attack if you can.
Yeah.
Look, those two ships are trying to make babies.
And one thing which is actually a little bit different in...
And that's how Zanzibar is born.
Yeah. One thing that's a little bit different in Genesis, which we'll also see in a little bit, although I don't make use of it here, is the way that they handle support defense is a little bit different from some of the previous G-Gen games, where it does seem to be handling support defense very similar to the way it handles support attacks.
Yeah, in the older ones, support defense was you would basically what's the word I'm looking for? You'd have the supporter do the whole dodging and taking damage part, and in this one they only support if you can't dodge, which is a nice change.
One thing I would also like to very quickly mention. One thing about ships in G-Gen games is their facing matters a lot. They're the only unit... Well, them and super large suits are the only ones that need to specifically rotate themselves when you move them. And where you have them facing can determine how far they can move, and the like number and like the angle that they can move. As well as can affect how some of their attacks can be performed. For example, those ships had a forward attacking missile attack, whereas their beam cannons and anti-air weapons were sort of able to hit anything around them. So they needed to actually face the direction of the enemy And also, if you had them facing forward in the direction that you're moving them, then they will also move further in that distance. And some ships will, like, if you try and move them backwards, like, they can't move at all. Like, they have no rearward movement speed, but they have a lot of forward movement speed.
I don't mean to cut you off here, but this woman's name is like a stripper's name.
Yeah, so names in Gundam are great.
A thing.
They are a thing.
Monique
One thing,
Cadillac, really?
yeah. One thing which is actually like fascinating about the way naming works in Gundam, aside from like a lot of characters having just the bizarrest names, and we're going to be running into a lot of them, is that Gundam also very intentionally uses the Western style naming order. Whereas in Japanese, it's people are usually referred to by their family name first and then their given name. In Gundam, they are very specifically using given name then family name.
Even Japanese people.
Even the Japanese people. Even in the Gundam shows, which ostensibly are in relatively modern times, that's like a very fascinating thing. And I remember seeing actually a thing at one point where the director was saying that like it's because at this point the globalization has been such a thing that like most of the world people are named, like people refer to each other by given then family. So you're just like in 1,000 years, or like whenever the universal century technically begins, it's pretty likely that like everyone's just going to name each other that way.
And I think that's why some of the names are kind of funky, because they're guesses at what kind of other cultures' names might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like some of these names, because Genesis is the first G-Gen, I want to say, that officially has an English language version.
Yes.
And so as a result, some of these names are maybe not entirely accurate. But also, like, some of them are also because those shows, like these series, may have never had any other form of official representation of them. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of these characters here that have German S names, I don't know if they've ever been represented anywhere else in an official English class.
I don't want to cut you off, but holy shit.
Yeah. So
War
at the
crimes.
beginning of the
Right
1-year
here.
war,
This is war crimes.
this is the war crime.
It's about to be a very bad day for anyone who lives in Australia. We'll just say that much.
Was it the first one that landed in Australia? I thought it was the second one.
I think it was.
I think they only drop the one and then it split apart.
Because
yeah,
the one at the end of 0083.
That hits North America.
Isn't that the one that hits Australia?
Yeah, that hits North America.
The one that
You
hits
might
Australia
be
is this
thinking,
one.
yeah, you might be thinking of it because part of W83 at the beginning takes place in Australia.
In Australia, yeah.
Yeah.
So, were there still people on that colony?
No, they actually did another war crime.
It.
They gassed everyone on it to death.
Yeah, they gassed
Oh,
everybody.
right, yes.
Yeah.
That was it, yes. They made, like, here they made it super vague because... Alright, so they did... I don't know if people necessarily clued into it, but Monique, she is... They're attached by... Like, she is basically a liaison to the Supreme Commander to oversee the team, and she suggests that everything is okay because obviously they don't want everyone to be more upset than they already are. But also, like, yeah, that's...
Boy, that flag is subtle.
Yeah. Like I said, they use a lot of iconography.
And it's totally intentional because the guys who worked on the original Gundam lived through World War II.
Right.
And probably very much did not want to
Yeah,
see
a lot
that
of
happen again.
a lot of the stuff about the presentation of Zeon and the like sort of the treatment of war in Gundam itself is not necessarily an accident. There is a very strong anti-war message throughout most Gundam shows. Some are stronger than others, and the way that some of them are told are different than others. But there is a strong theme of anti-war throughout the series, which a lot of people kind of miss because the robots are cool.
And also, I mean, literally, you're playing a game here which is about fighting war with these robots.
Yeah,
and it's fun.
I would broadly say that I know that in the thread I kind of razz on like the way people like grokked onto Xeon as kind of a positive thing, which like, does kind of strike me as weird. But I would say that broadly speaking, the games and stories which tend to focus on Xeonic characters tend to actually do a pretty good job at trying to get across that theme. It doesn't tend to present like the whole stuff as a positive, just some characters that are stuck in what's going on, and it sort of gives a different perspective. Whereas a lot of the EF stuff tends to be centered around heroes or corrupt people.
Mm-hmm.
See, they really give a lot of credence to just following orders in Gundam.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a lot of ships.
Yeah.
This is, as far as the 1 Year War is concerned, the first big major battle.
Yeah.
I think this is the only series in the game where we actually get to see it, but I could be wrong.
It is.
Yeah.
There's like 2 missions of this, and then like you go way ahead.
Yeah. The still currently being released Gundam The Origin has a lot of this battle in it because it's following the basic career of a character who will become very important later named Shara Znabel.
That's when you can get into the Xeon political situation.
Yeah, but Gundam The Origin's story is not presented in this game because, like I said, it's still being made as, now, basically.
but also one thing which I think would be a little bit awkward compared with the way that Genesis is presenting the 1 Year War as a whole is that The Origin also changes the way some of it actually advances.
That's true, too.
I don't think it's quite as big of a shift as the novels for the 1 Year War, which is a very large shift. But it changes it enough that I could see them wanting to shy away from trying to present it because like the presentation for Genesis as a whole seems like it's trying to do a history of the 1 Year War through a lot of the series and games that have been told during it.
Also, lots of it doesn't have a lot of like mobile suit fighting. It's a lot of like character stuff.
Yeah, I think because of when this is situated in the war, this might be the only mission that doesn't have mobile suits other than yourself.
Yeah.
I think the second one.
Okay.
Also.
Technically, there are some, but you don't control any during this other than yourself.
Well, no, I guess yeah, you're right.
Because the next mission chronologically is a Xeonic Front Wall, right?
I have a list right here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The next one is the first Xeonic Front Wall.
Is this like a railgun? Like, I don't understand.
It's a space laser.
So I think it actually is meant to be some kind of a railgun because it does seem to be a projectile and not a beam.
They call it like a fusion plasma cannon or something.
There is a name, and we will see it towards the end of this episode. And yeah, it's like a nuclear powered thingamajig. Like I can't exactly remember what it is. It is a big name.
Yeah.
Well, it loaded like a shell or something.
Yeah, which is why in the 1 Year War they actually do have some beam weapons that use shells because of the way that technology works, but I don't think that was a beam weapon per se.
It sure didn't look like one.
Yeah.
It'll say the name later. It's long and weird.
If we don't, like, if at the end when we actually do get to see the name and we still can't figure it out, like, I'll just look it up and confirm.
You guys having way too much fun.
Yeah.
Haha, murder.
Well, they just want to get to a position where they can see the next round being fired to make sure that it actually works.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the cannon is called the Jormungand. I keep getting it confused because the ship in this series is the Jotunheim.
Yeah, which is like the other thing that's kind of goofy about the way like Zeonic stuff tends to be, because so the normal Gundam stuff, like the Zeonic terms, tend to just like, I don't know what they're really based on. It just seems like random stuff. But a lot of the side stories tend to use Germanic terms. And then here you've got Igloo, where almost everything uses Norse, which is kind of interesting.
Well, the cannon is based off the world Serpent.
Yeah.
And the ship is based off the area where the giants come from.
Yeah.
Yep. I know that.
And yeah, like a lot of the stuff in Igloo has Norse naming conventions.
Mm-hmm.
Except for like a couple of things which are based off of the regular Zeonic terms. It's just changed, like they tend to do for those types of things. Because I think the next Igloo one is like that.
I think that makes sense. If you want to control your enemies off, you're going to use a name that's going to be automatically recognized.
Another thing that Igloo actually goes into is a lot of these are made by like competing companies.
Yes. So right here, I just want to take a pause from our thought and just talk a little bit about the difference in your units. So you'll notice in this ship, you have your master, you have your team, and you have the SFS. The way your teams get assigned in the modern style of Genesis game, in G-Gen games, is you have a master unit, which is basically like, I would say the leader,
the hero.
The hero. It's basically the hero, and the unit that gets assigned as the leader tends to be able to ignore size limits, because some units will take up a number of slots on the ship. And they also get some inherent HP and energy regeneration. However much it is kind of depends from game to game of this style of these. And then you have a number of teams of mobile suits, which tend to be 4 slots, 1 leader, 3, and up to 3 other units. And the leader gets their own aura, and that determines the area where things for the team itself can apply under. So, for example, if you're doing a support attack, all of the units of that team need to be within the leader's aura in order to be able to perform or benefit from support attacks or support defense. Also, like, some leader skills will apply to units within their aura. Like, for example, if a leader has a skill which gives people in their team bonus accuracy, it will only apply if the other members of their team are within that aura.
Oh my god, this game has robots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
I feel like I got sandbags there.
Yeah. No, we told you, yeah, it's all ships and no robots.
Yeah, here are some robots. Like, they're just right out of nowhere.
These are all the game original characters. That's why they're kind of
way more sophisticated than what they should be. Holy crap!
Also, like, Genesis has an entirely new cast, which threw me off when I first launched the game.
Yeah,
like I was looking for my old favorites, and like none of them were here. Like they're
still there.
Okay, you just have to unlock them later on.
No, you start with all of the originals. You don't
Yeah, you just
unlock
have to
any.
like slot them.
No, but
Yeah.
I mean like the classic G-Gen originals.
Yeah. If you go to your pilots, they'll actually be there. They're just not slotted into anything.
Oh, I didn't see them.
Yeah, so the first thing I did was I bought a second ship, and I had 2 groups of, originals.
Huh. Because I only saw these guys, the people on the ship, plus the DLC lady, who that is an interesting character to add into the game because she is the person who sings the theme song.
He's also very good as a guest slot in the warship.
That makes sense. This feature here seems to be new-ish to Genesis. I don't remember seeing this in World or Overworld. But
Yeah,
you can have your ship spend a good chunk of its energy to basically have everyone attack for what appears to be free. And it can spread through like a number of enemy units as long as they're within attack range of your units. Like the limiting factor to this is it is super easy to regenerate your mobile suits' energy. It is very difficult to regenerate your ship's energy.
Like the ship has energy regen, but it's very slow.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, the only way your ship will recover energy is by the amount of energy it recovers each turn. There are some items you can get and equip onto a ship that will boost its regeneration. But for a ship, like, it's not a lot. And so, like, 30 energy for that ship at the level that we're at is a very large chunk of its energy. Whereas, like, these Tornado Gundams and Phoenix Zeros can fire off like 30 energy or 45 energy attacks, and it's just off in the ship and it'll be recovered the next turn.
I like that Xeon is using Gundams here. That just bugs me.
It's not Xeon, it's you who
they don't contextualize it here in other, so like in World and Overworld they actually contextualize it as you are this outside force that's just making sure
like
that
traveling through dimensions and time,
making
and
sure
like,
that everything goes as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So this is like Xenoverse, but for Gundam.
Yeah, and I think if I read the manual, it probably does actually say this.
Yeah, it's how
it definitely depends
this
on
style
the
of game
G-Gen.
has been.
Yeah.
There are a
Definitely.
few that do it like Super Robo Wars, and they have like a big crossover storyline.
Yeah, those are the they're called like the Gather Beat style of games because the first couple were on the Bandai Wonder Swan Portable, and they were called SD Gundam G Generation Gather Beat 2, Advance, and then the DS ones were also like that. If you want to hunt down a legal copy of the game somehow and play one of those.
I'd rather not.
G-Gen DS is really good.
Well, to be honest, I haven't played a game like this in a long time.
Yeah.
The last one I played all the way through to completion was Super Robot Wars MX. I tried to play Alpha 3 and I got far enough to get Dailio, and then I was like, yeah, I'm out. Which is
like
I paid like
halfway through the game.
I paid like $150 for that game, so that was a total waste.
One thing
Nice that
in
you
this
have-
stage I wanted to mention earlier is it went over how the map is split, but like there are a lot of space maps that will be like that. You'll be able to move your units up and down from one map to the other, but in this one you can't actually move between those levels.
Yeah. This one is actually very interesting in the fact that like half the map is you participating in the Battle of Loum, and the other half is the original the series characters doing entirely their own thing.
Yeah, usually it'll be, your characters are fighting alongside the actual people who were there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sorry, but like this team here is here to make sure that things go as they're supposed to go, right? So
I'm going to go with that as what's
Ostensibly,
happening.
yes.
So they're not worried about anyone in these Federation ships going, holy fuck, what the hell is that?
I mean,
well, they're going to die.
Yeah, the
they're going to die.
Yeah.
Do they all die? Are they going to go around killing everyone so there's no witnesses? I don't understand.
The Battle of Loum
did
did not
Gundam,
go very
so
well
it's
for the.
gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah. The Battle of Loum did not go well for the Federation. We'll just put it that way.
Okay. Yeah. Because otherwise, I was going to say it doesn't really make sense.
There is something that you're going to see very shortly, which will kind of also explain why the Federation did notice these mobile suits. It's not that big of a deal.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, just going through the game, to be totally honest, it's one of those things where it's like you just have to not think about it that hard.
Well, yeah, I can't do that. I do that about games.
It's that type of thing where it's like this is how you play the game, and you know.
Yeah, your actual game pieces in this one are essentially just game pieces. Like, otherwise, you got weird stuff like the white base showing up to help protect the white base.
I mean, and considering you can play through this game in any order, like, I could be doing this mission using Unicorn Gundam, a mobile suit, which is created like 30 years from now.
And pilots from that time, too.
Yeah. Guess what I was using when I did this mission? I had a team of 3 Shars and Johnny Raiden.
So 4 Chars.
That's really confusing.
Yeah. So when I saw this animation here, the Tornado Gundam's saber, like that's when it finally sort of dawned on me why Genesis was just 1 year more only, because they went and they not only redid like the models and the animations, but like they went and did like a lot of little touches. Mm-hmm. If folks wanted to just like look up a lot of the animations for previous G-Gen games, like I'm not going to say that they're bad, because they're like, especially some of the later G-Gens, they do a lot of work to make them very show accurate, but they're also like very basic in some ways. And
well,
just,
one thing is that the older ones have like 3D rendered sprites, and this one is in full 3D.
Yeah,
and it's just like I like some of the little touches, like seeing that tornado sort of just flip its wrist around as it's swinging its saber, like that is really cool.
And also they are jumping from the PSP to the PS4, so there's a giant hardware gap too.
Yeah.
There was never one made for the PS3.
Well, I gotta say, this is the best looking G-Gen game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that turned me off of G-Gen, is the fact that the games look, to me, hideous compared to Super Robot Wars.
Yeah, I could see that. I could
the sprite
that.
style in F and the other games were very different than what Super Robot Wars was doing.
Yeah. G-Gen had it had its own style.
Well, you have to
and I could see.
You have to understand that my first exposure to this kind of game was Robot Wars. So I was used to that. So when trying to
Mine
play,
too, actually.
When trying to play a G-Gundam game, I was like, this is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is absolutely a very specific style, and they definitely changing the way it looks like. The first time I booted up Genesis and started looking at the robots and characters in it, like I was actually kind of thrown off a little bit, because like Tornado Gundam and Phoenix Zero are very long-running stalwarts of this series, and boy, they look really different.
Oh yeah, here's a cool mechanic with ships too. Since they're big and they take up space on the map, you can actually find their weak point and attack it for massive damage.
Yeah, and you can also, as people might have seen in a previous attack, you can support attack a pinpoint attack, but the difference is that the support units must be able to attack the specific square of the weak point, whereas if you just choose a regular support attack, they just need to be able to hit any part of the ship. Generally speaking, pinpoint attacks are only on enemy capital ship, or on capital ships in general, I should say. I think there are a couple of super large units that have one, though.
I haven't encountered any yet, but I've only...
In Overworld, there were a couple bosses that had it that weren't ships.
Yeah. I remember seeing some in World and Overworld, but I obviously haven't run into any super large units in Genesis yet.
Yeah.
Another thing
I've
is that
used a few, but
only mobile suits or any kind of little one square unit can actually do a pinpoint attack.
Yeah, you can't
other
pinpoint
ships
with that
can't.
ship. So here is where this is the real surprise of the Battle of Loum and why it went real poorly for the Earth Federation, because it was the debut of Xeon's own mobile suits.
Zaku's.
yep.
The real mobile suits, the best mobile suits.
Hey, if you want to use Zaku's in this game has Zaku's.
This game has a lot of Zaku's.
I got a Zaku 2 kit set just sitting on my bookshelf here waiting to be built. With the big gun. It's got the big gun.
Nice.
Oh, the one from Thunderbolt?
Yep.
Yeah, that one's really cool looking.
Yeah, I got that. And I also have a Zessa from Unicorn.
Also in this game, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be.
There's probably more than one version.
Well, yeah.
Probably.
But this is the Unicorn. I have the Unicorn version, the green one.
Yeah. Both are probably in this game, because I know the different versions of Dryson, which is another double Zeta suit that was later used in Unicorn, has different versions.
Zessa's
I mean, this
awesome.
game goes so hard on
So-
making different units for all the different painted and, faction versions of units that there's even one for a ball that has a shark mouth painted on it. It's just a ball.
Nice. Very
Speaking
good.
of balls, we're about to see a couple balls. A trio of balls, as it would be.
Yeah, so if you manage to complete the challenge for a phase, and I kind of ended up not being able to complete the challenge for the first half of this mission, so I actually don't know what it gives. But if you complete the challenge,
Oh, I thought you did it.
no, not the. So there's a challenge in the first half when it's just when you just have the Musai and the
Oh,
Yormi. Not the
that one's just bonus money.
That's just bonus money. Okay,
Yeah.
I figured that would be the case because at that point you only had 2 ships.
Yeah.
So fighting anything else would have been awkward. But yeah, here, so for many of these challenges, if you manage to meet the challenge, you get basically a bonus enemy spawn, and you can capture some of those units by destroying the leader. Which is actually like that in general is a mechanic that you will see throughout the game. Generally speaking, if units deploy from a ship and you destroy the ship, the units will surrender, and then you can move your ship close to them and then capture them.
And that's why you usually want to, when you encounter an enemy ship, move right up to it so it's forced to deploy. Otherwise, you won't get to capture anything, and that's where most of your money comes from.
Yeah, like you actually, relatively speaking, don't get that much money from just playing the mission, even if you complete the objectives. And also, like a lot of the, it's easier to get a lot of units. It's easier to get a lot of units by capturing them in a mission.
How did that ship get close enough to blow up the Jordan?
Because there was no targeting data for it.
Yeah.
So the Jorgamon couldn't fire because it wasn't able to target anything. It probably comes through better in the original animation.
Yeah, it was what kind of happened is while the Jormungand was like very far back, it wasn't like super far back, so there was a breakthrough, and a Magellan and a few Salamis did break through. And the reason why that Magellan is damaged is because the Musais that held the line were firing at it.
And another thing to note is in the original Igloo series, the way the various capital ships are depicted are very, very fast moving compared to other Gundam shows.
I have been trying for a while to get this clip, and I can't remember exactly which episode it is, but there is an episode of Igloo where this one unit is trying to attack a bunch of Salamis, and these Salonists are just weaving around like they're fighter planes. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's very bizarre looking.
It is hilarious. I swear to God, I've seen this episode. I can't remember which one it is.
I think the first one. In this, I know at least they were weaving around like that in the battle in this episode.
All right.
I should also note that the original Igloo anime, all of them are completely CG animated.
Yes.
And they were made in like 2004, so I'm not sure how well they age.
They actually aged relatively well because the technology that they use, or at least the styling, is it seems like it was like slightly cheaper Spirits Within. So like it's still like a little bit plastic, but like they look like people. It is pretty incredible.
I imagine the ships and stuff look fine.
Oh yeah. The ships and the mechanics look great. I will overlay a picture from Igloo around this point, just as an example, because I actually think that they still look pretty good. But like a lot of that's gonna nuclear fusion plasma beam cannon. So I guess it is treating it as a beam weapon, because you can tell by the icon. That icon is used to determine like the various types of attacks, and if I remember right, that one is probably like a special beam weapon.
Yeah, I know the older games call it Beam 1 and Beam 2 to differentiate like rifles and cannons, and then certain things would affect Beam 1 but not Beam 2. I don't know what the nomenclature is in this one.
Yeah, I actually didn't look into it before this. I'm also pretty sure that this is basically scripted to happen. Like, I'm pretty sure you can't fail shooting the Magellan.
Right.
No.
Like there is a hit chance, but I'm pretty sure you can't fail to hit it.
I actually let it go another turn so I could pinpoint it with the Orman gun. Also, very nice background music, which
Igloo has really good. Igloo has really good music. Igloo's like normal battle theme, which is the one which is usually attached to Oliver May. Once you get him, is really good. It is actually like one of my favorites in. It was one of my favorites in World and Overworld.
Yeah, so now the bittersweet ending of this is that the thing worked, but because mobile suits exist.
Basically, there's no point in having super long range. Well,
and
at this moment, the decision made by the higher command was that there was no longer a point in super long range, large cannons, because they now had mobile suits, which were smaller, more agile, could carry decent weaponry, if not necessarily battleship class, although that changed later in the war as well.
And I imagine economics were a factor too.
I bet you building an equivalent number of Yorman guns would have been cheaper than building that many Zaku's. But like the economics and the production capabilities were never something that they went into a lot of detail with in these series. In fact, like to be quite honest, they kind of gloss over that super a heck of a lot. Like things get prototyped and built way faster than they do in reality.
Yeah.
So once you clear a stage, your points get converted directly into cash, which is why, like, you may have seen, like, I only got about 16k. A basic level unit, if I wanted to go and buy like a brand new Saberfish, is like 9,000. And a lot of these pilots would be a pretty decent chunk. So like the amount of money you get from clearing a mission is not that significant compared to what you can get from capturing units and selling them. Also, like a lot of Bandai's games have tended to do, it disables recording when the game is running, which is why I was getting those errors saying that I can't take screenshots.
Oh, Bandai.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was the first episode of MS Igloo. What did you guys think?
I liked it.
It's a nice slow intro.
Yeah.
I wish I had. Well, I don't wish because I did it later, but it was much different for me because, like you said, I was jamming around with unicorn era mobile suits and kind of wrecking everything.
Yeah. I know at one point Katera was mentioning that going through it in chronological order was a good way of making use of like the way you get units in this game. It tends to be like not only do you capture, but you can evolve the units that you get as you level them up, and in some cases combine them. And
it's very easy to go way up the tech tree without using like half of the stuff way towards the bottom.
You can totally ignore a lot of the early stuff pretty easily, and going through it this way is a pretty good way of like trying to at least stay relatively on par. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, what ends up happening is you go up the tech tree when you evolve things, but you don't go out in the tech tree. So what you end up doing is you have one branch really high up, and then you go back down. It's like, oh, I have here's a normal Zaku. I have to go through its tech tree now.
Mm-hmm. Although I will say that the evolution tech trees for the Tornadoes and Phoenix Gundam is a little bit strange in this game compared to World and Overworld. And I think a lot of that just comes down to World and Overworld had the concept of basic units, which was like basically first episode versions of hero units or villain units in some cases. And because that one also had stuff from a wider range of shows, like it had alternate universe Gundam shows and not just the Universal Century. So your Tornadoes and Phoenixes would evolve to the various basics in order to allow you to branch out into each of the other series very easily. But here in Genesis, because it's only the Universal Century, like Tornado Gundam only evolves to Phoenix, and Phoenix only evolves to like true Phoenix, and like that's basically it. Mm-hmm. So it just makes them feel like
they're their own thing.
They just don't feel good when it comes to like the evolving aspect. Oh well. But yeah, so that's the first episode. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.